The sound of the door slamming still echoes in my mind 5 years later. My sister's face, twisted with disgust, is forever etched in my memory. "You made your choices, Riley," she had said. "Don't come crying to me now." I'm Riley Rodriguez, and that was the last time I spoke to my sister Selena face to face. Until today. My phone buzzes with another message from Olive. "Are you sure you want to look at those old photos? Nothing good comes from dwelling on the past." I smile at my best friend's concern, but continue scrolling through the family album on my laptop. There we are, Selena and me at my college graduation. Her arm around my shoulder, both of us beaming. Back when I thought family meant something to her. Back before I lost everything. "I need to do this," I text back to Olive. "Meeting with Margaret in an hour about the Stevens account. Need to stay sharp." The photos tell a story of two sisters who took very different paths. Selena, the golden child, built her empire from scratch. Designer clothes, magazine covers, that signature red lipstick that became her trademark. Meanwhile, I chose non-profit work, helping small businesses stay afloat. "Following your heart will leave you broke," Selena would say at family dinners. She wasn't wrong. When the non-profit I worked for collapsed, everything fell like dominoes. My savings disappeared into medical bills after my car accident. Insurance denied the claim. Rent past due. Each day brought a new crisis until that rainy November morning when I stood at Selena's door, swallowing my pride. My phone rings. It's Margaret. "Riley, you're not going to believe who just walked into my office," she says, her voice tense. "Who?" "Julius Gray." My hand freezes on the mouse. Julius, Selena's former business partner who helped build her empire. "What did he want?" "Information about your sister's companies. He's planning something big, and it's not good." I lean back in my chair, processing this. "Does Selena know?" "That's the thing," Margaret says. "I don't think she does. And from what I'm hearing, her empire isn't as solid as everyone thinks. The market's been brutal this quarter." A notification pops up on my screen. A news alert about Selena's company stock dropping 15%. Then another about potential layoffs. "Riley," Margaret's voice softens, "I know your history with her, but you might be the only person who can help her now." I laugh, but it comes out harsh. "Help her? Like she helped me?" "You're not her," Margaret says simply. Before I can respond, my email chimes. From Selena Rodriguez. Subject: "We need to talk." "I have to go, Margaret. The Stevens meeting is cancelled. They just called. Use the time to think about what I said." I open Selena's email. 3 lines. "I know we haven't spoken. I know I don't deserve your time. But please, just one meeting." Olive calls immediately after I forward her the email. "Don't you dare," she says without greeting. "Remember what happened last time? Remember sleeping in your car?" "I remember everything," I say, my voice steady. The shelter, the food banks, the nights I couldn't sleep because I was so hungry. "Exactly. So why even consider—" "Because," I interrupt, an idea forming, "sometimes the best revenge isn't what people expect." "Riley." "Trust me," I say, already typing my response to Selena. "I learned a lot these past 5 years. About business, about people, about how money really works." "What are you planning?" I think about the foundation proposal sitting in my drafts folder. About all the women I've met who were one crisis away from where I had been. About karma and justice, and how sometimes they need a little push. "Something she'll never see coming," I reply, hitting send on my response to Selena. "Something that will make every moment of suffering worth it." Olive is quiet for a moment. "Just promise me you won't let her hurt you again." I look at the last photo in the album, Selena and me as kids, holding hands, facing the camera with matching grins, before money and success changed her, before she learned to see people as either assets or liabilities. "Don't worry," I say, closing my laptop. "This time, I'm the one writing the story." "You can't sleep in your car forever," Olive had said, standing in the rain beside my old Honda Civic. That was the night everything changed, Exactly 4 years and 8 months ago. Watch me, I'd replied, huddled in my back seat under a thin blanket, surrounded by whatever possessions I could fit when the eviction notice came. But Olive wouldn't leave. She knocked on my window until I rolled it down. My couch isn't much, but it's yours if you want it. That couch became my salvation. I stare at it now, sitting in Olive's living room, remembering those first few months of rebuilding my life from nothing. Earth to Riley, Olive waves her hand in front of my face. You're doing that 1,000-yard stare again. Sorry, just thinking about how different things were back then. Different is an understatement, she says, settling beside me with 2 glasses of wine. Remember your first job interview after everything? I groan. God, don't remind me. I couldn't even afford proper interview clothes. Until Ralph swooped in like some tech angel in a hoodie, Olive grins. Ralph had been my first client when I started freelance consulting, though neither of us knew it at the time. I met him at a coffee shop where I was using the free Wi-Fi to send out resumes. He was struggling with his startup's business plan, and I offered advice while waiting for my $1 a coffee to cool. My phone buzzes. Speaking of Ralph. How'd the meeting with your sister go? His text reads. Tomorrow, I reply. Having second thoughts, the response is immediate. Don't. Remember what you told me. Sometimes the biggest opportunities come disguised as our worst memories. I said that? You did. Right before you helped me secure my first round of funding. Now look at us. I smile, remembering how Ralph's success helped launch my consulting career. One client led to another. Small startups became medium businesses. Medium became large. Eventually, Margaret noticed my work and brought me into her firm. Ralph says hi, I tell Olive, who's watching me with knowing eyes. Tell him thanks for the donation to the shelter program. That's another thing that changed. Once I got back on my feet, I started volunteering at the same shelter that helped me. Ralph matched every hour I volunteered with a generous donation. You know, Olive says carefully, what you're planning with Selena. It's risky. I set down my wine glass. Everything worth doing is risky, but using her own money to fund a foundation for homeless women, without her knowledge, that's more than risky, that's... Justice, I interrupt. Do you know how many women I've met who ended up homeless because someone like Selena refused to help them? Women with degrees, careers, families, one crisis away from losing everything. My phone rings. Margaret. Julius is making his move, she says without preamble. He's buying up shares through shell companies. Your sister's board meeting is in chaos. I check the time. Thanks for the heads up. I'm meeting her at 9 tomorrow. Be careful, Riley. Desperate people do desperate things. After hanging up, I pull out my laptop and open the foundation proposal. The framework is solid. I've spent months perfecting it. A legitimate charitable organization, properly registered, with one subtle twist. All major decisions would require approval from a board of directors, a board I would carefully select. What are you smiling about? Olive asks. Remember that business law course I took at the community college while sleeping on your couch? She nods. Best investment I ever made. Well, that and the coffee I bought Ralph. My phone buzzes again. Selena. Confirming tomorrow, 9 a.m. my office. I type back a simple, see you then. Olive reads the message over my shoulder. You're really doing this? I stand up and walk to her bookshelf, picking up a framed photo from 3 years ago. Me, Olive, and Ralph at the opening of the first women's shelter we helped fund. When I was at my lowest, I say, Selena taught me that family isn't always what we think it is. Sometimes family is the friend who offers their couch, or the stranger who believes in your advice over coffee. And sometimes family is the sister who slams the door in your face, Olive adds softly. Exactly. Tomorrow I'm going to teach her that lesson, but not by slamming doors, by opening them for others. I gather my things, hugging Olive goodbye. Outside, the night air is crisp, carrying the promise of autumn. My car, a modest but reliable Toyota now, starts smoothly. No more sleeping in the back seat. As I drive home, I think about the women who will benefit from the foundation. Women like I was, who just need someone to open a door instead of slamming it shut. Tomorrow, Selena will unknowingly become that someone. My phone lights up with one final text from Ralph. Remember, revenge is a dish best served with a side of karma. I smile, turning onto my street. Oh, sister dear, you have no idea what's coming. Selena's office hasn't changed. Same pretentious art on the walls. Same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Same assistant giving me the same disapproving look as I walk in at exactly 9 a.m. Ms. Rodriguez will be with you shortly, she says, not offering me a seat. I sit anyway, smoothing my charcoal grey blazer, the one I bought with my first real consulting check. 5 minutes pass, 10, 15. A power play I recognize from my sister's old playbook. At 9:22, the door opens. Selena steps out, perfect as always in her trademark red lipstick and designer suit. But there's something different in her eyes, something scared. Riley, she says, voice carefully controlled. Thank you for coming. I stand, matching her professional tone. 15 minutes is a long time to keep someone waiting, Selena. She flinches slightly. Good. Please, come in. Her office is smaller than I remember, the view less impressive, or maybe I've just grown used to better things. Coffee, she offers. Let's skip the pleasantries. Your email said it was urgent. Selena sits behind her desk, gesturing for me to take the chair opposite. I need your help. Funny how history repeats itself. I deserve that, she says, surprising me with her directness. But this isn't just about me. 2,000 people work for this company. Good people with families, mortgages, kids in college. And Julius Gray is trying to take it all away? Her eyes widen. How did you... I have my sources. Tell me what happened. Selena's composure cracks slightly. He's been planning this for months. Shell companies, quiet stock purchases. Now he's making his move for a hostile takeover. And you're bored, scared. Stock's down 30%. Clients are nervous. Julius is offering them deals they can't refuse. I lean back, letting her sweat a little. What exactly do you want from me? Your consulting firm specializes in corporate restructuring. Margaret says you're the best she's ever seen. I need you to help me save my company. Our father's company, I correct her. The one you inherited while I got his old watch and a pile of medical bills. Selena's hands clench on her desk. I built this company into what it is today. And now you're watching it crumble. I stand up, walking to the window. Why should I help you? Because you're better than me. The words burst out of her. Because 5 years ago, I was wrong. I was cruel and selfish and I've regretted it every day since. I turn to face her. Have you? Or do you just regret needing me now? Her phone buzzes. Probably another crisis. She ignores it. I deserve your hate. But please, Riley, help me fix this. On one condition, I say, pulling out a folder from my briefcase. You sign these papers. Today. What are they? Authorization to create a charitable foundation in your name. 15% of company profits, dedicated to helping women in financial crisis. Selena reaches for the papers, scanning them quickly. Her eyes narrow. This is already set up. You've been planning this. Let's just say I came prepared. The board would never approve. The board won't have a choice once Julius makes his move. Sign now, and I'll help you keep control. Don't sign. I pick up my briefcase. Well, I hear Julius is looking for consultants. Selena's phone buzzes again, and again. She glances at it, face paling. He's making an announcement in an hour. Tick-tock, sister dear. Her hand trembles slightly as she reaches for a pen. You've changed. Homelessness will do that to you. She signs each page, each signature seeming to cost her physically. When she finishes, I take the papers, checking them carefully. Now what? She asks. I pull out my phone, sending a quick text to Margaret. Now we go to war. Call your board. Emergency meeting in 30 minutes. I'll handle Julius. How? I smile, remembering the nights I spent researching Julius's company structure, finding the weaknesses. Let's just say I've had a lot of time to plan this moment. As I turn to leave, Selena calls out, "Riley, thank you." I pause at the door. "Don't thank me yet. And Selena, next time someone asks you for help, remember how this feels." In the elevator, I text Olive. She signed. "Holy shit," comes the reply. "You actually did it. Phase 1 complete. Tell Ralph to get ready with the press release about the foundation. Time to show my dear sister what real power looks like." The elevator doors open to the lobby. Through the glass doors, I can see reporters already gathering, waiting for Julius's announcement. They have no idea what's really coming. My phone buzzes with a message from Margaret. "Board meeting confirmed. Ready to rain hell?" I step out into the sunshine, smiling. "Oh, sister dear," I whisper, "you have no idea what you just signed up for." The boardroom crackles with tension. 12 pairs of eyes watch me as I stand at the head of the table, projector remote in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," I begin, "in exactly 20 minutes, Julius Gray will announce his takeover bid. But first, let me show you something interesting." I click through slides showing financial records, shell companies, and transaction histories. With each revelation, the board members lean forward, whispers growing louder. "As you can see," I continue, "Mr. Gray's hostile takeover isn't just aggressive, it's illegal. These transactions," I highlight several red flag transfers. "Classic market manipulation." "How did you get this information?" demands Thomas, the oldest board member. "Let's just say I've been watching Julius for a while. And I'm not the only one." I nod to Margaret, who opens her laptop. "The SEC has already been notified," she announces. "They're launching an investigation as we speak." Selena, sitting at the far end of the table, hasn't said a word. Her face is a mask, but I recognize the slight tremor in her hand as she reaches for her water glass. My phone buzzes. Ralph's message. "Press release ready. Foundation announcement set to go live in 5. But that's not all," I say, switching to the next slide. "While Julius was plotting his takeover, we've been working on something else. Something that will not only save this company, but transform it." The door bursts open. Julius Gray himself strides in, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he says, flashing his trademark smile. "Actually," I reply, "your timing is perfect. We were just discussing your creative accounting practices." His smile falters slightly. "And you are?" "Riley Rodriguez, Selena's sister. We've never met, but I know all about you, Julius, including what really happened with those offshore accounts in 2019. The color drains from his face. Behind him, one of his lawyers whispers something urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen," I address the board again, "in about 30 seconds, 2 things will happen. First, the SEC will announce their investigation into Mr. Gray's activities. Second," my phone chimes. Right on cue. "The company will announce the creation of the Rodriguez Foundation for Women in Crisis, funded by 15% of annual profits, effective immediately." Chaos erupts. Board members shout questions. Julius's lawyers frantically check their phones. Through it all, I lock eyes with Selena, who finally understands what I've done. "This is illegal," Julius sputters. "You can't—" "Actually, we can," Margaret interjects, sliding documents across the table. "The foundation was approved this morning, by Selena herself." "And the best part?" I add, pulling up the final slide. "The press loves it. Social media is already exploding. Your stock price?" I point to the rising graph. "Up 12% in the last 5 minutes. Julius storms out, lawyers trailing behind. The board members cluster around Margaret, examining documents and asking questions. I slip out onto the balcony, needing air. Selena follows me. "You planned this all along," she says quietly. "From the day you slammed your door in my face. The foundation, it's really going to help women like I was. Yes, every penny will go to women who just need a chance. A door opened instead of closed." She leans against the railing. I deserved this. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what others need. My phone buzzes again. Olive, you're trending on Twitter. The foundation's website is crashing from traffic. Riley? Selena's voice is small. What happens now? Now I help you rebuild your company. The right way this time, with actual values instead of just profit margins. And Julius? I smile, showing her my phone screen. A breaking news alert about the SEC investigation. Let's just say he'll be too busy with federal investigators to bother us. Us? Yes, us. Because like it or not, we're family. And families. I pause, remembering Olive's couch, Ralph's coffee shop advice, Margaret's mentorship. Families help each other, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. Back in the boardroom, Margaret is wrapping up the emergency session. The foundation announcement has overshadowed Julius's takeover attempt completely. Crisis averted, at least for now. One more thing, I tell Selena before we rejoin the others. Tomorrow morning, you're coming with me to visit a women's shelter. Time you saw firsthand what your foundation will be supporting. She nods, and for a moment I see a glimpse of my sister from before, the one who used to hold my hand crossing the street, who taught me to ride a bike, who dreamed of changing the world before money changed her instead. My phone lights up with another message from Ralph. Karma delivered with interest. I type back, not karma, something better, change. Looking at Selena's humbled expression as she faces her board members, I realize revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes the best revenge is forcing someone to become a better person than they ever thought they could be. This is where you stayed. Selena's heels click against the shelter's linoleum floor. She looks out of place in her designer suit, clutching her purse like a shield. Third bed from the window, I point to the empty cot. I spent 2 weeks here before Olive found me. Maria, the shelter director, leads us through the common area where women sit with their laptops, working on resumes or taking online courses. Most of our residents are employed, she explains. They're just one paycheck away from stability. Selena stops at a table where a woman in business casual attire types frantically on her laptop. I know you, she says suddenly. You were a senior accountant at Maxwell Corp. The woman looks up, recognition flickering across her face. Ms. Rodriguez, yes, before the layoffs. I watch my sister's facade crack slightly. This woman could have been me, could have been her. Tell me what you need, Selena says abruptly. Not the shelter, you personally. What would it take to get you back on your feet? The woman, Sarah, blinks in surprise. 3 months' rent for a security deposit, a reliable laptop, professional clothes for interviews. Selena pulls out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Done. Maria will help coordinate, and I want your resume on my desk Monday morning. My phone buzzes. Ralph sending updates about the foundation's first wave of grants. 20 applications processed, he writes. Stories that'll break your heart. Make it 30, I text back. I'm authorizing more funds. A child's laugh draws my attention. A little girl, maybe 6, shows her mother something on a tablet, one of the educational devices Ralph donated. They're not statistics anymore, are they? I ask Selena quietly. She shakes her head, watching Sarah return to her job search with renewed energy. How did I become so blind? The same way most people do. Success makes it easy to forget what struggle feels like. Maria leads us to her office, spreading out papers across her desk. These are the programs we'd like to implement with the foundation's support. Job training, childcare, emergency rental assistance. A commotion outside interrupts her. Through the window we see news vans pulling up. Who called them? I demand. I did. Selena stands straighter. It's time people saw the real work happening here. My phone explodes with messages. Olive, turn on channel 7. Margaret, stock's up another 8%. Ralph, donations pouring in. Selena faces the cameras with the same confidence she uses in board meetings, but her words are different now. Today, the Rodriguez Foundation announces its first initiative, Project Fresh Start. We're partnering with shelters across the city to provide immediate assistance to women in crisis. I stand back, watching my sister transform from corporate shark to passionate advocate. The shelter residents gather around the TV in the common room, hearing their stories being told with dignity instead of pity. "You did this," Maria says beside me. "You changed her." She changed herself. I just showed her the door. My phone rings, Margaret with urgent news. "Julius is making moves," she warns. "His lawyers are challenging the foundation structure." "Let them," I reply, watching Selena kneel to talk to the little girl with the tablet. "We have something he doesn't." "What's that?" "Public opinion. And a conscience." After the interviews, Selena pulls me aside. The board's nervous about the foundation scope. They're saying 15% is too much. Show them today's stock prices. Show them the press coverage. Show them Sarah's resume on Monday. Trust me, they'll understand the value. She nods, then hesitates. "Riley, that night, when you came to my door..." "Don't," I cut her off. "We can't change the past, but we can make sure no one else has to live it." My phone lights up with another message from Ralph. "Emergency shelter in Brooklyn needs immediate funding. Pipes burst, 30 women displaced." I show Selena the message. Without hesitation, she makes the call. "Get them hotel rooms, all of them. Send the bill to my personal account." As we leave the shelter, Sarah stops us. "Ms. Rodriguez, both of you, thank you." Selena hands her a business card. "Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." In the car, Selena stares out the window at the shelter growing smaller in the distance. "I need to make some changes at the company," she says finally. "Real changes." "I know. Will you help me?" I think about the folder on my laptop. Plans for employee assistance programs, affordable childcare, flexible work policies. Changes I've been drafting since the day I started plotting this revenge that became something else entirely. "Yes," I say, "but not for you. For them." My phone buzzes one last time. Olive sending a photo of the shelter's TV screen showing Selena's interview. The caption reads, "Sometimes the best revenge is forcing someone to become their better self." I look at my sister, seeing not the woman who slammed her door, but the one who just opened dozens for others. "Ready to really change the world?" I ask. She nods, and for the first time in years, I believe her. "You can't hide behind charity forever," Julius's voice booms across the conference room. He slams a stack of papers onto the table. "These numbers don't lie." I stand at the window, watching rain streak down the glass while Selena faces her former partner. 2 weeks of foundation success, and now this. "The numbers tell exactly the story we want them to tell," I say, turning around. "Your problem, Julius, is that you're looking at the wrong metrics." Margaret enters with a fresh set of reports. Quarterly projections, hot off the press. "More fairy tales," Julius sneers. "Actually," Margaret slides the reports across the table. "These came from your own analysts. They're jumping ship, Julius. 3 called me this morning alone." His face reddens. "This is absurd. You're destroying a perfectly good company with this bleeding heart nonsense." Selena, who's been quietly reviewing the papers, looks up. "Like you destroyed those pension funds in 2019. The room goes silent. Julius's lawyer whispers something urgent in his ear. "That's right," I say, pulling up emails on the projector screen. "We found those too. Funny how karma works." My phone buzzes. Ralph. "SEC investigators just left my office, showed them everything." "You're bluffing," Julius says, but sweat beads on his forehead. "Am I?" I project more documents. "These women you laid off without severance. They're now receiving support through our foundation, and they're very interested in talking to federal investigators." The conference room door opens. Sarah, the accountant from the shelter, walks in wearing a crisp new suit. "Perfect timing," I say. "Julius, meet our new compliance officer. She has quite a story to tell about Maxwell Corp's creative accounting." Julius stands abruptly. "This meeting is over." "No," Selena's voice cuts like steel. It's just beginning. Sit down. To everyone's surprise, including mine, he sits. Here's what's going to happen, Selena continues. You're going to sign over your shares, all of them, to the foundation. In return, we don't release what Sarah found in those offshore accounts. My phone lights up again. Olive. News van's outside. Someone leaked about the SEC investigation. Julius's lawyer frantically whispers in his ear again. His face goes from red to pale. You wouldn't dare, he says to Selena. The sister you knew wouldn't, she replies. But I'm not that person anymore. Riley taught me something about consequences. Sarah steps forward, opening her laptop. Should I show everyone what I found about the Singapore transactions? Julius grabs the share transfer papers. This is blackmail. No, I correct him. This is justice. For every person you stepped on climbing to the top, he signs, hands shaking. As his lawyer reviews the documents, my phone buzzes with messages from Ralph and Margaret. Everything's in place. One more thing, Selena adds as Julius stands to leave. The foundation will be using your former office as its headquarters. Seems fitting. After he storms out, Sarah turns to us. That felt good. Too good, I say, checking my phone. Olive says reporters are asking about Julius's resignation. We need to control this narrative. Already on it, Margaret says, typing on her tablet. Press release going out. Julius Gray steps down to pursue philanthropic interests, donates shares to Women's Foundation. Selena laughs, a real laugh I haven't heard in years. Philanthropic interests. Perfect. My phone rings. Ralph again. You need to see this. Trading floor's going crazy. Stock's up 20% on the news. Send me the numbers, I tell him. And Ralph, thank you, for everything. Don't thank me yet, he replies. Julia still has friends. Powerful ones. As if on cue, Margaret's tablet chimes with alerts. 3 board members just called emergency meetings. They're nervous about the changes. Let them be nervous, Selena says, surprising me again. We're doing the right thing, finally. Sarah shows us something on her laptop. Social media exploding with support for the foundation. Women sharing stories, offering help, asking about programs. This is bigger than us now, I realize aloud. It always was, Selena replies softly. I just couldn't see it before. My phone buzzes one last time. Olive sending a photo from the shelter. The little girl with the tablet is showing other kids how to use educational software Ralph developed. Worth it? Selena asks, seeing my smile. I think about my journey from her doorstep to this moment, about revenge transforming into redemption, about doors closing and opening. Almost, I reply. There's still work to do. Margaret clears her throat. Speaking of work, those board members are waiting. Let them wait, Selena says. Sarah, show us what else you found in those accounts. Time to make sure Julius's friends understand exactly what happens when they choose the wrong side of history. I watch my sister, this new version of her, take charge with purpose instead of pride. My phone lights up with another message from Ralph. Ready for phase 2? I look at Selena, at Sarah, at the empire transforming under our feet. Yes, I type back, time to really shake things up. They're calling for your resignation, Margaret announces, dropping the morning papers on Selena's desk. All 3 major shareholders. Selena doesn't look up from her laptop. Let them. This isn't a game, I interject, pacing the office. Julius's old office, now transformed into the foundation's headquarters. They're saying the company's lost its way, that we've turned a profit machine into a charity case. Have we? Selena finally looks up. Check the quarterly reports. My phone buzzes. Ralph sending the latest numbers. I read them twice to be sure. Profits up 30%, I say, surprised. How? Employee retention is at an all-time high, Sarah explains, entering with more reports. Turns out people work harder when they're not terrified of ending up homeless. The intercom crackles. Ms. Rodriguez, the board members are here. Both of us? I ask. All of them, Selena replies, standing. Ready to face the firing squad? The boardroom feels colder than usual. 12 stern faces, 3 empty chairs where Julius's allies used to sit. My phone vibrates. Olive wishing us luck. This has gone far enough, Thomas begins, waving a newspaper. The Rodriguez Foundation is overshadowing our core business. Is it? Selena pulls up the quarterly projections. Because these numbers tell a different story. Numbers can lie, another board member interrupts. People don't, I say, nodding to Sarah, who opens the door. 5 women enter, former executives, all hired back after being laid off under Julius's regime. Each carries a folder. Meet your new department heads, I announce, and your most profitable division leaders. This is irregular, Thomas sputters. So is embezzlement, Sarah says quietly, sliding documents across the table. Interesting files Julius left behind, about certain board members' private accounts. The room goes silent. My phone lights up, Margaret sending a thumbs up from her position outside. You're blackmailing us? Thomas asks, voice shaking. No, Selena stands. We're showing you the future, a company that profits by lifting people up, not stepping on them. Impossible, someone mutters. Really? I project new figures on the screen. Our employee assistance program cut turnover by 60%. The childcare initiative increased productivity by 40%. The emergency fund eliminated stress-related sick days. And the foundation, Thomas demands, generated more positive press than our last 5 marketing campaigns combined, one of the returning executives answers. Customer loyalty is through the roof. My phone buzzes again. Ralph. News about Julius just broke. Turn on TV now. I grab the remote. Every channel shows the same headline. Tech giant CEO arrested on fraud charges. Julius was just the beginning. Selena addresses the stunned board. The old way of doing business is over. You can either evolve with us or follow him out the door. You've changed, Thomas says to Selena. Yes, she replies. Thanks to my sister, I remembered who I was before money became more important than people. The boardroom door bursts open. Margaret rushes in, tablet in hand. You need to see this. Social media exploding, stock price soaring. Rodriguez revolution trending worldwide. The foundation's first success story just went viral, Margaret explains, playing a video. Sarah appears on screen, telling her story. From senior accountant to homeless to compliance officer. Comments flood in. Similar stories, offers of help, pledges of support. This isn't just about business anymore, I tell the board. This is about legacy. What do you want to be remembered for? Thomas looks at the numbers again, then at the returning executives, then at the news coverage of Julius in handcuffs. I move to approve the foundation's expanded charter, he says finally. One by one, the board members nod agreement. My phone lights up with messages from Ralph and Olive. They've been watching the live stream. Congratulations, Margaret whispers as the board files out. You did it. But Selena isn't celebrating. She stands at the window, watching the city below. What's wrong? I ask. We won. Did we? She turns, eyes glistening. All those years I was so wrong. About business, about people, about you. The past is past, I start, but she cuts me off. No, let me finish. When you came to my door that night, I thought I was protecting my success. Instead, I was losing my soul. My phone buzzes. A photo from Olive. The shelter's common room, packed with women watching the news about our company's transformation. Look, I show Selena the photo. This is your legacy now. Not the money or the power. This. Sarah knocks and enters. The press is waiting. They want to know what's next. Selena straightens her jacket, wipes her eyes. Tell them the truth. Tell them this is just the beginning. My phone lights up one last time. Ralph. Ready to take this nationwide? I look at my sister, really look at her, and see not the woman who slammed her door, but the one who's helping thousands open new ones. Yes, I type back. Time to change the world. And that's how I ended up homeless, I tell the packed auditorium. But this story isn't about falling down, it's about how we help each other get back up. The audience, mostly business leaders and philanthropists, sits in rapt attention. My phone buzzes silently in my pocket, probably Olive reminding me not to forget the key points. The Rodriguez Foundation isn't just changing lives, I continue. It's changing how we think about business itself. Success doesn't have to mean stepping on others to reach the top. From the front row, Selena nods encouragingly. Behind her, Sarah leads a group of women, all former shelter residents, now employed and thriving. Questions? I ask as I wrap up. Hands shoot up everywhere. A reporter stands first. Is it true the foundation is expanding to 50 new cities? 51, actually. Selena takes the microphone, each with comprehensive support programs, job training, and emergency assistance. Another reporter. And the company's profits? Record-breaking, Sarah answers from her seat. Turns out doing good is good business. My phone vibrates again, Ralph sending live reactions from social media. The hashtag #RiseUpTogether is trending nationwide. After the presentation, we gather in the green room. Margaret brings coffee and updates. 3 more companies called. They want to implement our model. And Julius, I ask, pleaded guilty this morning. His friends on the board are next. Selena sits quietly, staring at her reflection in the window. I know that look. She's thinking about the past. Hey, I touch her shoulder. Stop beating yourself up. I just keep thinking about all the people I could have helped before, all the doors I slammed shut. But look at all the ones you're opening now. My phone chimes, Olive sending a video from the shelter. The little girl with the tablet is teaching coding to other kids. Below it, she's written, "Your revenge turned into something beautiful." A knock at the door interrupts us. Thomas enters, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes instead of his usual suit. "I visited the shelter today," he announces. "Saw the programs in action. I'd like to volunteer, if you'll have me." Selena and I exchange glances. Another conversion. "Welcome to the revolution," Sarah says, handing him a volunteer packet. My phone lights up with an alert. Stock price hitting another record high. But that's not what matters anymore. "Remember that first night at the shelter?" I asked Selena. "When you met Sarah?" "How could I forget? It was the first time I really saw people instead of numbers." "Well," Margaret interrupts, tablet in hand, "wait until you see this." She plays a news clip. Companies across the country announcing similar foundations, following our model. The Rodriguez effect, they're calling it. "It's spreading," Sarah says proudly, "like a positive virus." "More like karma," I reply, "but the good kind." Selena stands suddenly. "Come with me, all of you." She leads us to the auditorium's back entrance. Outside, a crowd has gathered. Women from the shelter programs, their families, employees, volunteers. "This is your real legacy," I tell her. "Not the company, not the money. These people." My phone buzzes one last time. Ralph. "Ready for phase 3? Before I can answer, Selena takes the phone. "Yes," she types. "But this time, we do it together." She hands it back, then addresses the crowd. "When my sister came to my door years ago, I thought I was protecting my success. Instead, I was losing my humanity. But she taught me something powerful. True success isn't what you gain, it's what you give back." The crowd cheers. Sarah squeezes my hand. Margaret wipes away a tear. "So," Selena continues, "today we're announcing something new. Every company that partners with us will dedicate resources to helping others rise. Not because it's good publicity, but because it's right." More cheers. My phone starts blowing up with messages. Olive, Ralph, board members, reporters. "Ready to change the world?" Selena asks me quietly. I look at the crowd, at Sarah teaching Thomas about the shelter programs, at Margaret coordinating with other companies, at the women whose lives we've helped transform. The world's already changing, I reply. We're just opening the doors. As the crowd disperses, Selena hugs me, really hugs me, like when we were kids. Thank you, she whispers, for not giving up on me. Thank you, I answer, for proving revenge doesn't have to destroy to make a difference. My phone lights up one final time. A message from the little girl at the shelter, sent through Olive. When I grow up, I want to open doors for people too. I show it to Selena, watching her eyes fill with tears and purpose. Well, she says, straightening her jacket, we better make sure there are plenty of doors to open. Together, we walk back into the auditorium, ready to build something bigger than revenge, bigger than success, bigger than ourselves, something that feels a lot like justice, and hope, and home.
Hi there, my name's Marlene, and yes, I was the one standing in the middle of the mall when my sister laughed at me like I didn't belong, like I was just background noise in my own life. She had no idea the staff would call me boss, no idea the company she was trying to work for was mine. But that moment, that wasn't the worst part. The real hurt, it started long before the mall, with family dinners where I was invisible, birthdays where I barely existed. A mother who handed down heirlooms like love came with conditions. You ever been treated like the backup plan in your own family? Because I have. And what happened next might just surprise you. Greenview Mall smelled like synthetic vanilla and cinnamon pretzels. The floors gleamed too bright, like they were trying to cover up how dull everything else felt. I was only there for a walkthrough, just a quiet check-in before the showroom launch next week. But I should have known better. As I walked past the center atrium, my sister's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Oh my God, look at her!" Cherie laughed, loud enough to draw eyes from the bench of teenage girls nearby. "Who even dresses like that to go shopping? She looks like she's auditioning for a job she'll never get." I didn't stop. I didn't even turn my head. But I heard it all. Her friend giggled, probably not realizing who I was. That made it worse somehow. My grip tightened around the leather strap of my crossbody bag. I had on a dark blazer and jeans, simple, efficient, professional. But to Cherie, anything that didn't sparkle or show cleavage was ripe for ridicule. A staffer from the tech booth near the pop-up showroom spotted me and rushed over. "Miss Kasmarek," he said, handing me a tablet. "We updated the floor projection based on your specs. Let me know what you think, boss." Cherie stopped mid-laugh. I felt it. A weird drop in the air, like the AC had suddenly kicked colder. My eyes met hers for half a second. Just enough. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked around, realizing the workers in branded black shirts were watching me, not her. That this showroom didn't just happen to bear my company's logo, it was mine. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I just nodded politely to the staff and moved toward the back section to review display positioning. Behind me, I could hear her trying to recover, changing the subject, fake laughing, brushing it off like she hadn't just humiliated herself. But I didn't stay to witness it. I didn't have to. It wasn't the first time she'd tried to shrink me. In our family, Cherie had always been the one people noticed. The performer, the beauty, the girl who wore sequins to school events and turned every backyard barbecue into a fashion shoot. And me? I was the quiet one, the serious one, the girl who fixed the Wi-Fi and didn't mind sitting at the kid table well into my 20s. Cherie once told me, without irony, that I was born to be background music. She meant it as a joke. I smiled like it was one. I learned early how to turn silence into armor, how to measure my worth without applause. But the sting of her words still echoed, even now in my 30s, as a woman who built a tech firm from a kitchen table and turned it into a multi-million-dollar platform. And yet to her, I'd always be the boring one. I remember vividly Claudine's 60th birthday. Our mother had gathered the whole family at a fancy restaurant in uptown Charlotte. Linen tablecloths, candlelight, the works. After dessert, she made a small speech, then pulled out a box. Inside was a gold necklace passed down from her grandmother. A piece with sentimental value, something I knew she wore only on special occasions. "I want you to have it," she said, holding it out to Cherie. My heart didn't break exactly, but it did stumble. Cherie beamed. "Oh my God, Mom, it's beautiful!" I cleared my throat. "Wait, I thought that was going to be shared between us someday." Claudine just waved it off, not cruelly, but with that gentle condescension mother's perfect over time. "You're not into these things, Marlene. You don't really go out much, sweetheart." The table chuckled, and just like that, I was 12 again, opening a homemade birthday card while Cherie unwrapped a karaoke machine from Dad. There had never been enough space for both of us to shine, and I had stopped trying to elbow my way in a long time ago. Back in the present, I checked the showroom's display lighting, tapped through the digital projections, and made a few notes on the tablet. Outside the showroom glass, Cherie lingered. She wasn't laughing anymore. Her arms were crossed. Her eyebrows were furrowed. She tilted her head like she was seeing a stranger instead of her sister. I turned to speak to the floor lead, not bothering to acknowledge her. There was power in being underestimated. Later that evening, I stopped by my apartment for a late dinner. The view from my living room window stretched across the Charlotte skyline, tall glass buildings reflecting the pink-orange blur of dusk. I stood by the counter, eating reheated pasta from the night before, replaying the look on Cherie's face over and over again. It wasn't revenge I felt. It wasn't pride either. It was justice. For every time she'd called me the spinster with a laptop. For every family gathering where she joked I was probably dating my code. For every comment she whispered just loud enough to bruise. That moment in the mall didn't fix the past, but it gave me something it had taken years to claim. Presence. And then, like a small cosmic wink, my phone buzzed. A notification from our internal HR system. New applicant, Cherie Brown. Position, Senior Finance Analyst. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. She had applied. To my company, to my team, unaware that the woman whose quietness she'd mocked for years would be the one reviewing her resume. I didn't sleep much that night. After rinsing my plate and setting it in the drying rack, I opened my laptop on the kitchen counter, too restless to leave it for morning. The city outside was hushed, Charlotte in its quietest form, but inside me, something stirred. Not anger, not glee, just the sharp stillness of irony finally showing its hand. I refreshed the Stratalyze internal dashboard. The application still sat there. Unread, technically. I clicked. There it was. Her full name, Cherie Alexandria Brown. Her resume loaded in a single, sleek PDF with gold text accents. Of course, the woman had a designer font for her name header. Senior Budget Lead, it read under her last role. I blinked. Lead? I remembered that job. She had taken it a year after her boutique line tanked. It was a quiet pivot. No grand announcements that time. Just a LinkedIn update and a few vague captions about joining the corporate climb. And now here it was, spun and reworded, crafted to sound like she'd carried the department on her back, managed quarterly audits across multi-million-dollar portfolios, guided financial strategy on emerging product lines, redefined internal budget structures. I had to hold back a laugh. She'd been a junior consultant. I knew that because I had once fixed her broken Excel sheet over Thanksgiving break. She'd asked me to help, over pie. "Just make it work," she'd said, waving her fork like a wand. "You're good at this boring stuff." That memory hit harder than expected. I didn't feel rage. I felt tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of the stories she told to make herself larger. And now, the joke had folded in on itself, because her oversized resume had landed squarely in my review queue. A different version of me might have flagged the application, maybe even rejected it outright. But that's not who I am. That's never been who I am. I scrolled back to the top and clicked, Advance to next round. A confirmation flashed. Application forwarded. Let's see who she is, without the spotlight. I closed my laptop, the weight of the screen settling like punctuation. But sleep still wouldn't come. I walked over to the window, arms folded. The skyline blinked softly in the distance, uptown towers glowing like coated lanterns. And just like that, I was 15 again. It was sophomore year. Our school hosted a spring showcase. Cherie had signed up for a dramatic monologue, something loud and sweeping from a Broadway show I can't remember now. I had quietly submitted a project to the science fair on the same day. Something about thermal conductivity in metals. At the end of the night, Mom brought roses. She gave them to Cherie, who was still in her stage makeup, basking in applause. "I think she's really got something," Mom had whispered to Dad. No one asked about my project. I packed it back into its box myself. That's how it always was. And now, the same girl who once whispered, "You'd be nothing without a screen in front of you," was applying to work behind mine. I turned back from the window and opened Slack. A message from Derek, my co-founder, sat at the top. "Hey, just saw a Brown on the applicant list. Any relation?" I typed slowly. "Older sister. Doesn't know I'm here." He replied with a single ellipsis. Then, "Want me to pull it?" I stared at the screen, then typed, "No, let's see what happens." Later that morning, sunlight started bleeding through the blinds. I made a pot of coffee, fed the cat, and tried to move on. But the buzz wouldn't leave me. I wasn't just reviewing a resume. I was watching the same old game try to play itself in a new arena, one where I held the whistle. And I was curious, more than I wanted to admit, how Cherie would navigate a space where no one knew her name, no one worshipped her wardrobe, and no one clapped on cue. This wouldn't be her stage. It would be her test. By the time Monday rolled around, the air inside the Stratalease office felt tighter than usual. Not tense exactly, just expectant. The kind of atmosphere where something is about to happen, but no one can quite name it yet. From my home office, I opened the internal system dashboard and navigated to the building's live feed. The security camera in the main lobby gave me a clear view of the entrance. Then, right on cue, there she was, Cherie. She stepped through the glass doors with the kind of confidence only someone oblivious could carry. A light camel blazer, heels too high for comfort, hair pulled back to reveal statement earrings. She shook the receptionist's hand with a grin like she was at a networking gala. "Hi, Cherie Brown. I'm starting today," she beamed, like it was her stage debut. She hadn't changed a bit. "Still performing for applause," I murmured under my breath as I sipped lukewarm coffee. She walked down the hallway, already cracking a joke to one of the junior analysts passing by. I watched her disappear from view, into the belly of a company she knew nothing about, yet already acted like she owned. 24 hours earlier, I'd sat at the same screen with a very different kind of energy. My hand hovered over the digital approval form for new hires. Her name was there, top of the list. The HR coordinator had flagged her for fast onboarding. I clicked Approve. Under the admin notes, I quietly routed her to the finance division, under a director I trusted, someone firm but discreet. I also added an encrypted tag, EK Oversight. It gave me access to every submission she'd make without her knowing. I wasn't going to interfere. Not yet. But I wasn't going to let her roam unchecked either. She won't see me, I'd thought to myself. Not unless I want her to. Now, as I watched her settle into her desk on camera, I leaned back in my chair. My apartment still smelled like burnt toast from breakfast, and my inbox was already filling with team updates. But I couldn't look away. Later that day, around lunchtime, I caught a low murmur from the staff chat, the kind that didn't use names, just hints, a screenshot, a vague question. Then someone dropped it directly into the internal break room thread. "Hey, anyone ever seen the other co-founder?" Responses came fast. "Nope, thought it was just Derek. I heard she works remotely, or maybe she's like a ghost founder? Does she even exist?" Then came a sentence that hung there like smoke. "If she's real, why hide? That's sketchy as hell." The message was from Cherie's handle. I stared at it, blinking. So, she was already poking at the curtain. That didn't take long. The thing is, there was no rule saying I had to be visible. Derek and I had built Stratalease on a shared vision, transparency for clients, privacy for founders. I wrote the code. He shook the hands. That had always been the deal. Still, her words felt personal. Not because she doubted my presence, but because the tone hadn't changed. Even when she didn't know who she was talking about, the judgment was automatic. I let the thread die out on its own. Later in the afternoon, Cherie accessed her onboarding documents. She was assigned a budget review for Q1 adjustments, a routine task, nothing high stakes. But in the system logs, I noticed something odd. She kept opening files that weren't part of her assignment. She'd opened the legacy financial approval trail. And she'd paused on one file for 5 full minutes. The signature at the bottom, E. Kaczmarek. That signature was on almost every strategic financial directive, staff changes, equipment rollouts, contract approvals. But E. Kaczmarek didn't exist on the public org chart, not under current staff, not under the board. She was digging. In her system log, she ran a name search. No matches. I could almost hear her whispering, "So, who's running this place?" As night crept in and the building emptied out, I turned off the feed. But the image of her, eyes narrowed at her screen, mind racing, stayed with me. I had seen that look before, usually in a mirror. Back then, she was the star and I was the shadow. The girl behind the science fair project no one clapped for. The one who always had the answer but was never asked the question. And now, the roles were shifting. I should have known she'd come looking for answers, in the one place I didn't expect. After a long Tuesday of back-to-back virtual check-ins, I found myself still restless well past 9 p.m., the kind of restlessness that didn't come from caffeine or a missed meal, but from tension, a familiar, pressing discomfort. Like something was off, just out of sight, but very much in motion. So instead of heading to bed, I grabbed my keys, pulled on a zip-up hoodie over my joggers, and drove to the office. The building was mostly dark when I arrived, just a few emergency lights casting long, sterile shadows in the hallway. I didn't bother using the front entrance. I had clearance for the rear access elevator, the one that led straight to the basement level, the server room. That was my safe place. There's something meditative about humming machines, the gentle whir of processors at work. The chaos of the world couldn't survive in that silence. I swiped my badge, entered the secure PIN, and let the steel door click shut behind me. The room pulsed softly with quiet energy, lines of blue and green light blinking in steady rhythms. I dropped my bag on the floor and moved toward the central terminal. This wasn't just about peace of mind tonight. I opened our audit logs and began scanning employee data transfers. Nothing dramatic, just routine checks. Then a folder pinged yellow in the logs, flagged for external access. That wasn't typical. I expanded the log. The access ID belonged to Cherie. And the document? A Q2 budget draft, still in review, not finalized. I clicked further. She'd sent it to a personal Gmail. My stomach tightened, not from betrayal, but from something else. Predictability. There was no evidence of malicious intent. She hadn't forwarded it to a competitor or leaked it. Maybe she just wanted to study it more. Maybe she thought she'd impress someone by referencing internal projections in a meeting. But it didn't matter. It was against policy. And she knew better. "Still trying to shortcut your way in," I muttered, bookmarking the violation. I didn't act, not yet. But the line was getting thinner. I stood, stretching my arms, and moved to the opposite side of the server rack. The cool air brushed my skin, grounding me. I checked the backup mirror to ensure I was alone. I always checked, even though I'd never seen anyone here after hours. Until now. The echo of fast, deliberate footsteps snapped through the silence. I froze. The only person who would be down here this late was me. Unless someone else had decided to go poking around. The door creaked. Heels. Not sneakers. Not boots. Heels. I stepped out from behind the rack just as Cherie stopped dead in her tracks at the doorway. Her breath hitched when she saw me. "What are you doing down here?" she asked sharply. Not surprised, suspicious. I didn't flinch. "Guess I have special access," I said calmly. Her eyes scanned the room, flicked toward the terminal behind me, then back to my face. She tried to compose herself, but I could tell her brain was already racing. "That doesn't answer my question." "You're not in a position to ask one." Her posture straightened, but before she could speak again, another voice rang out from the hallway. "Marlene, got a minute?" It was Derek holding a slim folder. He stepped inside casually, flipping open the cover. "Need your signature on the vendor pricing model." I reached for the folder without breaking eye contact with Cherie. She didn't move, just watched, like a curtain had finally been pulled and she wasn't sure what stage she was standing on anymore. Derek glanced between us. "You two met yet?" "No," I said flatly. Cherie didn't answer. I took the folder, signed on the last page, and handed it back. "Thanks," Derek nodded. Take your time. I'll be upstairs. He left without another word. The door clicked shut again. Silence. Cherie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She stood there, eyes bouncing from the terminal to me, to the air between us that now felt impossibly charged. For the first time in our lives, she didn't look like my older sister. She looked like someone who'd been outplayed and didn't know when it happened. I didn't say anything else, just walked past her, bag slung over my shoulder. She turned to follow me with her eyes but didn't move. Let the doubt grow. It says more than I ever could. The next time I saw her outside of work was Saturday morning, at the same sun-washed corner table we'd gathered around since childhood. It was a brunch Claudine had insisted on, said she missed seeing us all together. I'd hesitated, but eventually gave in. Some routines, even the uncomfortable ones, still had a place in the family fabric. The cafe smelled like cinnamon waffles and brewed espresso. Cherie had already arrived, perched at the center of the table, loud and animated as usual, waving her mimosa like it was an accessory. She tossed around office lingo she'd barely begun to understand. Budget reallocation, strategic pivot, revenue forecast accuracy, strung together like pearls on a necklace she hadn't earned. Across the table, our Uncle Wendell chuckled mid-bite and leaned toward me. You two working in the same place and not even talking about it? What are you, corporate spies now? I smiled faintly but said nothing. Cherie laughed harder than necessary, flicking her hair over one shoulder. Come on, Uncle W. It's not like I report to anyone important. I lowered my eyes to the steam curling from my coffee. She didn't know just how wrong she was. Later that weekend, I reviewed the quarterly prep deck from our finance team. Monday morning's internal sync was going to be a big one. I wasn't supposed to be in that meeting, not formally, but as head of infrastructure strategy, my signature was on every line item being discussed, so I decided to sit in. The meeting began like any other, projectors humming, people filing in, the sound of chairs scraping tile. Cherie walked in confidently with a click of her heels and set her laptop down at the head of the conference table. She began her portion of the presentation, Q3 projection overview, reading from her slides like she had practiced. Confident, articulate. For a moment, I almost thought she had it down. Then I saw the numbers. The revenue projection was off by a wide margin, not a rounding error, a full $180,000 discrepancy. I raised my hand. The room quieted. All eyes turned to me, some surprised I was even present. That revenue line, I said evenly, doesn't align with the pipeline inputs. We've been pulling from a new model since June. Cherie blinked, visibly caught off guard. It was based on the July forecast. That version was deprecated, I said. Check the access logs. The updated model is clearly time-stamped. She tried to pivot. Well, I thought it was more accurate to show both versions. But you didn't. You only showed the outdated one. That creates risk. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the AC unit. Her face turned a shade paler. Our director nodded. We'll need that fixed before end of day. Good catch, Marlene. I said nothing more. I didn't enjoy the moment, but I didn't shrink from it either. As the meeting dispersed, I caught a glimpse of Cherie, still seated, her fingers motionless above her keyboard. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She looked cornered. That afternoon, I reviewed anonymous submissions for our internal innovation grant program. We'd recently launched it to encourage fresh ideas from all levels, regardless of title or tenure. One proposal stood out: tight structure, sharp financial logic, fresh angle on integrating team training into budget forecasting. It was easily the strongest of the batch. I marked it for immediate approval. 2 days later, HR pinged me to schedule a follow-up with the author. The name? Cherie Brown. I stared at the screen, lips parting just slightly. Huh, I muttered. Maybe there's more to her than I thought. Around the office, I started noticing subtle shifts. People no longer grouped her in the new hire category. They listened more carefully when she spoke. She wasn't exactly embraced, but she wasn't dismissed either. And Cherie? She no longer lingered in the break room like it was a stage. She came early, left late, talked less, observed more. I didn't approach her, not yet. But I watched, quietly, not out of judgment, but out of curiosity. Maybe this wasn't just a performance after all. Maybe something was changing. Then came the day she crossed a line I couldn't ignore. It started with a ping, a quiet alert on my desktop just after 8:13 p.m. I was finishing up my notes for an investor call the next morning when the compliance system flagged a red item: restricted document sent to external contact. At first, I thought it might be a misclassification. Our system sometimes caught false positives, new vendors, third-party consultants. But when I opened the report and traced the access path, the sender's name stopped me cold: Cherie. I stared at the entry, her company email address, time-stamped, logged, the document in question: a preliminary proposal containing sensitive financial forecasts tied to a pitch for one of our most high-value clients. And the recipient? A third-party vendor, not yet under NDA. Someone she'd been coordinating with for visual materials, probably trying to make her presentation more slick. My chest tightened. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't some innocent misstep like using the wrong spreadsheet in a rush. This was careless, arrogant, dangerous. She hadn't just crossed a line. She'd sprinted past it, eyes closed, with no sense of consequence. I didn't react immediately. I just sat there staring at the screen, letting the reality harden in my mind. Then I stood, grabbed my phone, and walked out of the apartment. The air outside was cold, sharp enough to sting. I drove straight to the office. Derek's car was still in the lot, his light still on. He worked late as often as I did. When I knocked on his door, he looked up with that quiet concern he reserved for moments like this. "Got a sec?" I asked. He nodded and closed his laptop halfway. "Always." I stepped inside and dropped the printout onto his desk. He scanned the highlighted line, his brow furrowing halfway down the page. "She forwarded that?" he asked. I nodded. "From her company email, to an outside vendor. They haven't signed anything." He let out a low whistle and leaned back in his chair. "That's not just sloppy. That's a breach." I folded my arms. "She's crossing lines like they don't exist." "You knew this was coming," Derek said after a pause, voice even. "The only question is, how far will you let it go?" He sipped his coffee, watching me. "You've been protecting her in silence," he continued. "Maybe it's time she sees who she's really dealing with." He wasn't wrong. I had let it slide. I told myself it was to observe, to study her under pressure. But the truth was, I was afraid. Afraid of turning into her. Afraid that doing what needed to be done would make me cruel, cold, unforgiving. But it wasn't cruelty that fueled me tonight. It was accountability. Later, back at my apartment, I sat down in the glow of my monitor and opened a new HR incident report. It asked for the subject. I typed, Cherie Brown. It asked for the incident category. I selected, policy violation, confidential data mishandling, and in the summary section, I kept it brief. Document, FY26 budget forecast, vendor forward without clearance. Breach, external sharing prior to NDA. I attached the compliance log and clicked forward. The to-field autofilled Derek's address. Above the message body, I wrote one sentence, no more warnings. Then I hit send. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, letting the silence settle around me. Outside, the city pulsed like a distant heartbeat. But inside, I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. She'd earned the fallout. And I wasn't going to catch her this time. Still, I didn't expect her to stay quiet. She came for my credibility next. The hallway was quiet, eerily so for mid-morning. Fluorescent lights hummed low above polished tile, casting dull reflections off the company's wall of founders. Most people walked by it without a second glance. But not her. Cherie had been on her way to finance, arms full of reports, phone in hand, when her stride slowed, then stopped. Her gaze locked on the glass panel that lined the far wall, elegantly etched with names, titles, and founding years. Legacy set in stone, or in this case, laser cut into tempered glass. And there it was, Marlene Kamerick, co-founder, chief technical architect, 2019. I watched it unfold from my office's camera display, a private feed only a handful of people even knew existed. I didn't need audio to read the moment on her face. Her body stilled, her chest rose with a sharp inhale, and her shoulders pulled back like she'd been slapped. She stood frozen, not blinking, not moving. The clipboard in her hand lowered slightly. She wasn't holding it anymore. She was holding realization. It took her several seconds before she stepped away. She didn't go into finance. She didn't even check her phone. She just walked. Later that afternoon, as the office buzzed with its usual low hum, keyboard taps, soft laughter, printer whirs, I saw Cherie again in the employee lounge. She was standing by the coffee machine when Samira, one of our newer analysts, walked up holding a sandwich. "Oh my God," Samira gushed. "Are you the one who's close to Marlene?" Cherie blinked. "Excuse me?" "You know, like, close. We all figured. I mean, you're new, but you came in strong. I heard from Ops that Derek signed off on your hire personally." Cherie's expression shifted instantly. Not confusion this time. Something else, calculation. Samira continued, oblivious. "Kinda wild, right? No one's ever seen her. Some people thought she didn't even exist, but you're clearly connected." There was a beat. Cherie smiled, tight and thin. "You hear a lot of things around here." "Still, if you are close to her," Samira added, lowering her voice slightly, "some folks think you might be next in line for leadership. You know, if anything changes." I paused the feed right there. Even through the distance of a lens, I could feel it. Cherie wasn't just absorbing the rumor. She was deciding whether to wear it like armor or use it like a blade. It didn't take long to find out which. By 4:15 that same day, she stormed into HR. I wasn't in the building, but the call came through immediately from Lila at the front desk. Marlene, she's here. She wants to know who's been touching her financial reports." "Did anyone tell her?" "She demanded access logs. She says someone's been undermining her role." "And did you give her the names?" "She saw yours. We didn't hide anything. She looked upset." "Good," I said softly. "She should be." Later that evening, I watched the surveillance recording. Cherie at the HR counter, her voice rising, hands braced hard against the desk, face flushed with something more volatile than anger. Betrayal. "She's been reviewing my work?" she said, incredulous. "My sister? I've been working under her this whole damn time?" It wasn't just shock. It was a slow, humiliating unraveling. She turned abruptly and walked out, not toward the elevator, not toward her desk. She needed air, maybe space, maybe time. But what she needed didn't matter anymore. I sat at my console, watching the footage rewind, then play again, slower this time. Not because I wanted to savor it. I wasn't gloating. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was closure. And maybe just a little justice. It had never been about hiding from her. Not really. It was about seeing what she'd become when she thought I wasn't watching. It was about proving, to both of us, that identity doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs truth. And when the truth came out, she didn't fold. She fought back, hard. The invitation came 2 weeks earlier, slipped into my inbox between performance reviews and code deployment approvals. A clean corporate header, an elegant serif font. Stradley's 5-year anniversary celebration, executive recognition ceremony. I hovered over the RSVP for a full day before clicking yes. Not because I needed the attention, but because I finally stopped hiding. The day arrived with Carolina blue skies and air heavy with summer. The company's 10th floor was transformed. Linen-covered tables, champagne flutes, the scent of catered hors d'oeuvres wafting through the lobby. I wore black, tailored, structured, calm, a reminder that I was never just a technician in a hoodie. Derek took the mic near the end of the program. He spoke about growth, resilience, and innovation, pausing with a glance toward me. "And now," he said, "I want to introduce the real mind behind our tech, the one who's been shaping this company from behind the curtain, a quiet force, a brilliant one." He turned, arm outstretched. Marlene Kaczmarek. Applause, hesitant at first, then growing, row by row, like a wave finding momentum. I stepped onto the stage. Across the room I saw her, my mother, Claudine. Her eyes blinked rapidly as if adjusting focus. Next to her, Wendell's expression twitched somewhere between disbelief and embarrassment. Cherie wasn't in the crowd. Not yet. But she'd hear. I spoke briefly. No theatrics, just acknowledgement of the team, of our journey, of the code that had become something more than syntax. It became structure. When I stepped off the stage, the room buzzed with questions. Some eyes followed me like they'd just learned a secret, some like they'd just solved a riddle. In the hallway outside the ballroom, Claudine caught up to me, Her heels tapped nervously against the tile. "Why didn't you tell us?" I turned to her. "Would it have changed how you saw me?" There was no defense in her face, no sharpness, just something softer. She nodded once, small, but enough. Wendell wandered over next, tugging at his collar. "Didn't think coding could build an empire," I smiled. "Didn't think silence could say so much either." He chuckled, uncertain, then left. That evening, long after the lights dimmed and the crowd dissipated, I returned to my office. The space was dimly lit, calm. I powered on my screen. Notifications blinked. One stood out. "Quarterly forecast adjusted per your comments. Thanks for the correction. S. Brown. No emojis, no fluff, just plain text." But it was the first time she'd ever acknowledged an error. No deflection, no sarcasm, just responsibility. Attached was a revised forecast, every line double-checked, no rounding slips, no padded assumptions. It was solid. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled beneath my chin. Something had shifted, not loudly, quietly. I closed my laptop and stepped out onto the rooftop. The air was cooler up there, softer. The city stretched beneath me, glowing like static fire. And then I saw her. Cherie stood at the far edge, hands resting on the railing. She didn't turn when I approached. "You win," she said. "It wasn't a game." A pause, then her voice lower. "I wasn't trying to be better than you, I just wanted to be seen." I moved beside her. "Well, now they see me, loud and clear." She turned. For once no smirk, no raised brow, just eyes, tired maybe, but clear. There wasn't a hug. There wasn't forgiveness spelled out in warm, sweeping dialogue, but there was acknowledgement, a shared silence, and sometimes that's all there is. And sometimes that's enough. Still, as I stood beside her, city humming beneath us, wind catching the edges of her blazer, I knew something else too. Respect doesn't erase wounds, and healing doesn't always come with closure. Monday morning carried that same quiet tension it always did, the kind of low buzz that hinted things were about to move, just not yet. My inbox was already stacked, notifications popping up like popcorn, meetings, deadlines, flagged emails, another packed day. Then one notification stood out. New CSR proposals submitted, review pending approval. I clicked it without much thought. But this one didn't land like the others. Touch the screen, touch the future. A mentorship program for young women in underrepresented tech communities. It was a solid concept. Clean, grounded, long-term. But it wasn't the idea that got me. It was the author, Cherie Brown. I paused, read it again. Then my eyes dropped to the last line, tucked into the margin almost like an afterthought. Inspired by the quiet mission of Marlene Kasmarek. That stopped me cold. Not because of what it said, but because of what it meant. Not a tribute, not a plea, just a nod. A quiet recognition. Like someone saying, "I saw what you did, even when no one else did." I sat back, staring at the screen. It wasn't just a proposal. It was a mirror held up to something I'd long put away. Not for closure, just for distance. I approved it. Not out of obligation or emotion. It was simply good, strategic, grounded, worth doing. 2 days later, the quarterly review brought us all into the boardroom. Fluorescent lights, sterile walls, that stale air of long meetings. Derek sat beside me, impassive. Cherie was 3 seats down, notebook open, focused. No theater, no flash. Wendell, newly semi-retired but still clinging to authority like a second skin, flipped through the CSR packets with a smirk. Then he said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Bit much giving credit to someone who doesn't even like the spotlight, no?" The room hushed. Not dramatic, just still. Cherie looked up, calm. "Actually," she said, "some of the most powerful people I know say the least, and do the most." She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. The weight was in the restraint. No one responded. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full. A kind of shift you could feel more than name. I didn't jump in. Didn't need to. She didn't look at me, but there was a glance, indirect but clear. Not a request. Not even a connection. Just alignment. Like she wasn't covering me, but standing beside the truth. The week blurred forward. Tasks, calls, the usual chaos. Then Sunday came again. Family brunch, same cafe, same wobbly table, same plastic-coated menus from a decade ago. I walked in late. Cherie was already there, dressed down, flats, denim, hair tucked behind one ear, a mimosa at her side, her notebook half open. This wasn't work mode. This was just her. The small talk dragged. Gas prices, weather, election rumors. I kept quiet, chewing slowly. Then Wendell lowered his paper and asked, "You still doing that freelance data thing?" Before I could answer, Cherie cut in. "Uncle, she runs the company I now work for. The one whose tools you use to file your taxes." Flat, factual. Forks paused midair. No one knew where to look. Then Claudine, always quiet, reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. Just a touch. No words, no performative grace, and somehow that was enough. That night I walked home, letting the breeze carry the weight of the day. The mural on Davidson Street came into view, faces painted across brick, voices of the past frozen in color. I stopped. I didn't feel triumphant, or bitter, but I didn't feel invisible anymore either. Maybe justice isn't about getting the last word. Maybe it's about not needing to. Maybe healing doesn't come with big declarations. Maybe it's the small shifts, the way someone who once talked over you starts listening. At the corner, I whispered, to myself, to the night. We don't have to go back to being sisters the way we were. A pause. But at least now she sees me, and that's a start. Sometimes the hardest place to be seen is in the spaces closest to us, the ones we call home, the families we come from, the workplaces we've helped carry on our backs. You can show up, work hard, stay loyal, and still feel invisible. For years, I chased a kind of recognition that never came. I thought if I just kept my head down, if I stayed quiet and steady, someone would notice. That my silence was a kind of strength. That dignity meant never demanding anything. Not attention, not space, not even credit. But here's what I know now. Silence without boundaries doesn't protect you. It erases you. And waiting for others to hand you your worth is a game you'll never win, because it was never theirs to give in the first place. Through my own experience, both personal and professional, I've come to understand something I wish someone had told me sooner. You don't need anyone's permission to take up space. You don't need approval to be powerful. And sometimes, the boldest kind of justice isn't a confrontation. It's simply showing up as your full self, unapologetically, while the people who once overlooked you slowly realize they were wrong. Maybe you've been underestimated. Maybe you've made yourself small to avoid tension. Maybe you've downplayed your voice just to keep the peace. If any of that feels familiar, let this be your sign. You don't have to shrink anymore. You don't have to wait for the right moment to stand tall. Be the version of yourself they never expected, and let them catch up, because you're not too much. You're not too loud. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for exactly what you've earned: respect, recognition, and room to breathe. Now I want to turn this over to you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family, or like your work and worth were overlooked in your job? What was the moment that shifted something for you? Not to prove anything to others, but to finally choose yourself. I want to hear your story. Drop a 1 in the comments if any of this hit home, or let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm always reading, and I'm always listening. And if this video gave you even the tiniest spark, even if it was just a quiet, steady yes inside your chest, hit that subscribe button. There's more coming, more stories, more truths. Because this isn't just about me anymore, it's about us. And I'm just getting started. Hi there, I'm Isolde. My parents sent gifts to everyone in the family, except me. And when I opened the empty box they did send, I smiled, like it didn't break something inside me. But that wasn't the start. They left my name off holiday invitations, cropped me out of family photos, told my nephew I didn't belong because I was too different. I stayed quiet, until my art spoke louder than they ever let me. Want to know how far a family will go to erase you, and what happens when you stop apologizing for being seen? The box came 2 days after the snow started sticking. It had that familiar beige tape from my mother's home business, the same script she used to label jam jars and handmade wreaths. For a second, I thought, maybe this year was different. I set it on the counter, wiped the snow from my boots, and opened it slowly. Empty. Not just no gift. Nothing. No note, no wrapping paper, not even a Merry Christmas written in her usual curly cursive. I stared at the hollow space inside, my breath catching in my throat. My name was still neatly printed on the shipping label. So it wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. Meanwhile, the group chat was blowing up. Dawson posted a photo of Luca tearing through wrapping paper like a wild animal, his face lit with pure joy. Rochelle bragged about the gourmet basket from Mom and Dad. They nailed it this year. I didn't comment. I just took a picture of the empty box, posted it to my story with one line, smiled in return for the favor. That smile wasn't kindness, it was armor. 2 weeks ago, I made myself a cake. Chocolate, boxed, with a frosting swirl I tried too hard to perfect. I posted a photo of it in the family chat, candles lit, one of those quiet, maybe someone will remember moments. No one did. No likes, no comments, no happy birthday. This morning, Mom posted a picture of Dawson at 5, holding a wooden train. My golden boy, always. Then came a flood of comments. Cousins, aunts, even Dad joined in. I turned off notifications. Back in the kitchen, I placed the empty box next to the trash. I didn't throw it away. Not yet. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I wanted it to sit there a little longer, just to remind myself that the silence wasn't in my head. People love saying, family is everything. But what they don't say is, some families are skilled at subtraction. They'll chip away at you piece by piece until there's nothing left but your name on a label. And even that feels like a courtesy. I didn't cry. Not this time. I didn't call and ask if it was an accident. I didn't pretend I was too busy to notice. I just stood there, staring at that box like it had spoken. And in a way, it had. I went to make coffee, but instead just stood there. The sound of the heater kicking on broke the quiet. It was almost laughable, how one box could shift something I'd been trying to ignore for years. That night, I couldn't sleep. I ended up digging through a stack of unopened mail I'd tossed on the hallway table. Somewhere near the bottom was the envelope from mid-November, still sealed, with my mom's slanted handwriting on the front. Back then, I hadn't thought much of it. I was busy. School finals, art submissions. One of my students had lost her father. I had told myself, I'll open it later. Now I wished I hadn't. The paper inside was thick, printed, formal. More effort than Velma usually gave anything that didn't involve Dawson. It read, Velma and Clinton, along with Dawson, Rochelle, and Luca, invite you to a family Thanksgiving. Just like that. Like I didn't exist. I read it twice, turned it over, checked for a note. Nothing. Not a single mention of me, not even a blank line or a +1. I sat down on the edge of the couch, letter in hand, staring at the same signature I'd seen on my empty box. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered if this was the first time. But it wasn't. Last Thanksgiving, I was there. I brought wine and an apple galette. No one asked me to. I helped set the table. They forgot to make a seat card for me. When Mom said grace, she thanked everyone by name, except mine. At the time, I told myself it was nothing. She was distracted. She didn't mean to. This letter told me otherwise. I picked up my phone, called her. It rang 4 times before she answered. Well, hey, stranger, she said, forced cheerful, like I'd interrupted her mid-laugh. Everything all right? I kept my voice light. Hey, Mom, I got the Thanksgiving invite. Just wanted to check. Was my name supposed to be on it? There was a pause. Not long, just enough. Then came the laugh, tight and sugary. Oh, you know how it is. I mean, of course you're invited. Do we really have to spell everything out these days? I didn't respond. She continued. You know we love having you. It's not like you're not family. It's not like you're not. I let the silence stretch until she changed the subject. Something about a new pie recipe. I mumbled something polite, said I had to go, and ended the call before she could pretend I'd overreacted. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the empty box still sitting there, and tossed it in the bin. It landed with a hollow thud. Funny how even trash made more of a sound than I did. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I watched the snow melt from the window ledge and wondered if I was being too sensitive, or just finally honest. The group chat kept buzzing. Rochelle shared a picture of her dinner table with a caption about gratitude. Dawson posted Luca's drawing of a turkey, messy and proud. Everyone was laughing in emojis and inside jokes. I stared at the screen and for once decided not to disappear into silence. "Glad everyone had a good time," I typed. "Thanks for the invite, even if I wasn't technically listed." No one responded in the main thread. 10 minutes later, Dawson messaged me privately. "Dawson, Isolde, seriously, don't make this a thing. You were invited, you know that. Let's not turn this into drama, okay?" Drama, that's what he called it. I reread his messages twice. My brother, the same one who used to share his Halloween candy with me, who cried when I broke my wrist in 5th grade, now sending me a damage control script like he was handling a customer complaint. I didn't answer him. I didn't need to. The next morning, Dad called. It was early, just past 7. I hadn't even poured my coffee yet. "Hey, kid," he said, voice quiet. "Your mom told me you were upset about the Thanksgiving invite." I didn't say anything. Let him carry it. "She didn't mean anything by it," he continued. "You know how she is. She probably just forgot to include your name. It wasn't personal." I bit my cheek. The taste of iron hit my tongue before I could stop myself. "She didn't forget Dawson," I said flatly. He sighed, long and tired. "Look, this family's already had enough tension the past few years. I just don't want more of it. You know what I mean?" No, I didn't. But I knew what he meant. He didn't want confrontation. He didn't want discomfort. He didn't want the truth to stretch across the room and make anyone else squirm. "Just let it go, all right?" he said. "Be the bigger person." I closed my eyes. "Sure," I whispered. "Bigger person. Got it." We ended the call soon after. He asked me to send my new mailing address again, even though he'd already used it twice that month. After I hung up, I sat on the floor next to my radiator and stared at nothing. They all wanted peace, but only if I kept swallowing what burned going down. They could call it calm. I knew better. That Sunday, the roads were mostly clear, but I drove slower than usual. The cold wasn't on the pavement. It was sitting somewhere between my ribs. I pulled into their driveway just after noon. Lunch was already underway. Velma opened the door with a short nod and a side hug that barely brushed my coat. Rochelle smiled and said, "Glad you made it," with a tone that sounded more like obligation than welcome. Inside, the house smelled like roast and over-scented candles. Luca ran into the room clutching a crayon drawing. "Look, Grandma, I made you a bird." Velma bent down, took it from his hands and beamed. "It's beautiful, baby. I'll put it on the fridge right now." She kissed the top of his head and walked it straight to the kitchen, clipping it in place between a grocery list and a recipe card. I stood there, holding a canvas wrapped in brown craft paper. When she came back, I offered it quietly. "I brought something for the hallway. Thought it might go well with the winter decor." She peeled back the paper slowly. The painting was soft, grays and silvers, a quiet forest under fresh snow. I'd worked on it in silence for weeks, not loud, not political, not too much. She stared for 3 long seconds. "Oh, it's a bit moody for the hallway, don't you think?" She placed it gently on a chair. "Maybe it'd go better in a study or something." She was already walking away when she said it. No one mentioned it again. During dessert, Luca climbed into the chair next to me with a coloring book. His voice was soft. "Aunt Izzy, Grandma said you're different." I looked up from my untouched slice of pie. "What do you mean?" "She said, you don't have a husband because you're hard to understand." He kept coloring. "She said some people don't really belong in families when they're like that." My fork clinked against the plate before I realized I'd dropped it. I reached for my glass of water to steady my hands. Luca didn't even look up. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was just repeating. And somehow, that made it worse. By Tuesday evening, the tightness in my chest still hadn't let up. I'd gone back to teaching, grading water-stained still lifes and muted landscapes, but everything felt mechanical, like my hands were moving without me. I curled up on the couch that night with my laptop, hoping to escape into something brainless. Instead, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. The first story I saw was Rochelle's. Plain pink background, white cursive font. It read, "Some people just love being the victim. No tags, no names." But no one needed names. The next slide was Luca's drawing, his little bird sketch, captioned, "Art that actually brightens the room." My stomach dropped. Not because it was clever, but because it was calculated. I stared at it for a long moment before tapping into her messages. Me. "Was that supposed to be about me?" The reply came quick. "Rochelle, if the shoe fits, you've always made everything about you. We're tired." There it was. Not even masked, just venom in lowercase. I held the phone in my palm, heartbeat sinking to the screen's light. Then I typed back slowly, every word deliberate. "Me. Next time you say my name, say it directly. Because if this keeps going, I won't stay quiet anymore. And I won't be polite." She didn't answer. I took a screenshot, then saved it to a locked folder on my drive. I didn't post it. Not yet. That message wasn't for public consumption. It was a line. Drawn clearly. Finally. I wasn't going to pretend to misunderstand her anymore. I wasn't going to make it easy for them to wound me in silence and call it love. They wanted peace on their terms. But peace doesn't come with cruelty buried beneath politeness. So I sharpened my voice. Not for shouting, but for clarity. The next morning I woke early, too early for a Saturday, with something buzzing under my skin. I didn't open my emails. I didn't check the group chat. Instead, I brewed coffee, walked into my studio, and stared at the canvas I'd started weeks ago, but never finished. It was quiet, cold, and honest. A dining room table, long and heavy. Figures seated but faceless, just silhouettes of hands passing plates. At the end, one chair pulled far away, like it had been dragged backwards mid-meal. The shadows didn't reach that far. That spot was in the dark. I finished it in a single sitting. By late afternoon, I took a photo, cropped tight, posted it on Instagram with one caption, "For anyone who's ever smiled through silence. No hashtags, no names, just truth." By midnight, the post had hundreds of shares. The next day, it doubled. Someone with a large following, an advocate for trauma recovery, reposted it, writing, "This one hit me in the chest." Comments poured in. "This feels like my Christmas is growing up. My mother always saved the worst seat for me too. I've never seen something explain it this well." I didn't respond to any of them. I just watched. Then quietly, Rochelle's name started showing up in the comments. Only not in praise. People asked questions. Is this based on real family dynamics? Wait, isn't her sister the one who posted this? Someone tagged Rochelle's business page. By Tuesday, her online store had paused its updates. I checked out of curiosity and saw several posts had their comments turned off. One story was deleted entirely. Then came the group chat messages. Dawson dropped a vague, "Let's be kind this week" post. Rochelle posted a quote about grace and growth, always the fallback for people caught out. Later that night, a private message from Rochelle. "Take it down. This is affecting my work." I read it. I didn't type anything back. Instead, I went back into my studio, pulled out another blank canvas, and started a new piece. A woman, back to the viewer, standing in front of a wall made of shattered mirrors. Each one reflected something different. None of them looked like her. This one would speak for itself, too. They wanted silence. But now, the silence had a face, and it wasn't mine. I had just finished wiping the last streak of varnish across the new canvas when my phone buzzed with a notification from Facebook. I wasn't tagged, of course not, but I recognized the caption instantly. "So thankful for this beautiful family." Red heart emoji, no mention of names, just the photo. I clicked. It was taken in Velma's living room. Holiday decor perfectly curated, matching outfits in burgundy and navy, candles flickering in the background. Dawson, Rochelle, Luca, Clinton, even two cousins I hadn't seen in years, but not me. At first, I thought maybe I hadn't been there that day. Maybe it was a gathering I wasn't invited to, which would have been predictable at this point. But then I noticed something familiar. The vase on the table, the one I'd brought last year. The painting in the background, that was my work, framed and given as a Christmas peace offering. This wasn't a new photo. It was the same group shot from last year's dinner. The one where I'd stood between Dawson and Rochelle, holding a tray of cookies. Only this time, I wasn't in it. They had cropped me out. Cleanly, like I was a smudge. My breath caught in my throat, not in sadness, in something colder. I opened my photo library and scrolled until I found the original. There I was, smiling in a too-tight sweater, trying, again, to look like I belonged. I uploaded both pictures, side by side, no filters, no edits. Caption: sometimes being erased tells you more than any words ever could. Within minutes, messages started appearing, not from family, from old college friends, former co-workers, a parent of one of my students. Wait, they really cut you out? This is beyond passive-aggressive. I'm so sorry, that's disgusting. Someone DM'd me. I had no idea your family was like this. That's not okay. I didn't reply. Not out of pride, out of preservation. An hour later, my cousin Alina commented on Velma's post. Where's Isolde? No one answered her. 2 hours after that, Velma deleted the entire post. By nightfall, Rochelle posted a Bible verse about grace again, her favorite PR stunt. Dawson went silent. Clinton, as always, stayed out of sight. And I poured tea, took off my earrings, sat back in the quiet. Let them explain me away this time. The morning after Velma's post vanished, I woke up to my name pinned to someone else's truth. I was sipping coffee, black, no sugar, scrolling through my feed when I saw it. A comment under a reshared screenshot of the family photo. It wasn't from a stranger, though it might as well have been. It was from someone I hadn't spoken to since my first gallery show, Sandra, from the local art council. Erasing your daughter from the photo doesn't erase what she means to people. That was it. No hashtags, no fanfare, but it spread like wildfire, the kind you don't see coming until it's licking at the base of your front door. Other people chimed in, former students, a few old neighbors. One even said, I always thought there was something weird about how they treated you. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate either. I just sat on my couch, laptop warm on my thighs, and watched the tide shift. Not because I asked for it, but because someone else refused to look away. The town's Facebook groups, usually reserved for lost pets and snow shoveling requests, lit up with opinions. Some defended Velma. That's still her mom, show some respect. But most didn't. By afternoon, the phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. That evening, I walked to the mailbox barefoot, the kind of careless that happens only when your blood has settled into steel. Inside was a plain white envelope, no return address, but I knew the handwriting instantly. Velma's. I took it upstairs. Didn't open it right away. Let it sit on my counter while I made tea, swept the kitchen, watered my succulents. Only after the kettle whistled and cooled did I tear it open. The letter was neat, blue ink on ivory paper. I was wrong. I thought protecting my image mattered more than protecting you. I see now it cost me something I may never get back. There were more words, some that almost felt real, others that sounded like guilt dressed up in Sunday manners. I folded the letter, slid it into the back of my desk drawer. I didn't throw it out, but I didn't answer it either. Christmas morning, I sat alone in my studio, finishing the piece I'd started a week earlier. A dining table, long, simple, empty except for one chair, one plate, one hand, mine, reaching across to place a card that read, "Welcome me." I took a photo and posted it with the caption, "Sometimes you build your own table, and that's enough." I turned off notifications, not out of fear, out of finality. Let them scroll, let them stew. I didn't need their seats anymore. Between Christmas and New Year's, the days blurred, quiet, slow, kind. There was no grand gesture, no surprise visit at my door. Just peace. That was new. I'd signed the lease for a small art studio 2 blocks from my apartment. It smelled like sawdust and possibility. The walls were still bare, the windows tall and unfiltered. I hadn't even hung curtains yet. I didn't want to. I was preparing materials for my first workshop, set to start after the new year. 20 students had signed up, more than I expected. Some familiar names, some I didn't recognize. Then, one email caught my eye. Subject, Luca. He's been asking to learn from you. No pressure. Just thought you should know. Rochelle. That was all. No apology, no follow-up. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. On the back wall of the studio, I'd already hung a version of the painting that changed everything. The dinner table with the empty chair. But in this one, I'd painted that chair in soft gold, and above it, added a small sign. For those who tried, and those still learning how. The day of the first class, I arrived early, organized the brushes, laid out name tags. At exactly 10:03, Luca walked in, holding a sketchbook against his chest like it was a secret. He didn't say much, just nodded at me, then found a seat near the window. 15 minutes into warm-ups, he raised his hand. "Can I show you something?" he asked. I nodded. He flipped his notebook around. A table, not like mine. This one had 5 chairs, each one labeled Mom, Dad, Luca, Grandma, Aunt Isolde. There wasn't a dramatic moment. No swelling music, no long hug, just that drawing, and his small crooked smile. I smiled back. Not to perform, not to prove anything, but because it was mine. Later that evening, I returned home, brewed tea, and sat by the window with my feet tucked under me. I didn't open the drawer with Velma's letter, but I didn't dread it being there either. Some closures don't need noise, just breath. And as the year turned over, I thought about the gifts. They sent them to everyone but me. So I built something that didn't come in boxes or wrapping, something unshakable. This was the favor I smiled for. I used to think family meant unconditional love, that no matter how flawed it was still home. But I've learned something else. Sometimes, home isn't a place you're invited into. It's something you build, brick by brick, when no one else saves you a seat. They gave gifts to everyone but me, and in return, I gave myself something far better: self-worth. If you've ever felt invisible in your own story, if you've ever sat through holidays pretending nothing stung, I want you to hear this. You don't have to keep showing up for people who keep leaving you out. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are not wrong for wanting peace that doesn't cost your dignity. Some of us were born into families. Others, we create our own, through truth, through art, through boundaries. Now I'm curious. Have you ever felt erased or excluded by people who were supposed to love you the most? If so, what helped you reclaim your place in your own life? Drop a comment below. Let me know if this story spoke to you. If it did, type 1, or tell me where you're watching from. And hey, if it didn't hit home for you, tell me why. I'd still love to hear your story. And if you believe stories like this deserve a place in the world, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps these voices keep speaking. Until next time, stay strong, stay seen, stay you. Hello, I'm Anissa. My sister once told people I was used to scraps, and then made sure I ate Thanksgiving dinner behind her house, next to the trash bins. They called it a seating mistake. But what do you call it when your name's missing from the will, your blog gets targeted, and CPS shows up at your door, uninvited? I thought I was losing my mind, until a woman in a black Bentley pulled up and said, "We've been watching. We believe you." How did I get from leftovers to microphones? Why did my own mother say, "We can't carry her forever"? And what made my sister hate me this much? I found the gift card buried under expired coupons, old receipts, and a broken pen. It was shoved in the back of a drawer I hadn't opened since the kids started school again. The card had Darlene's perfect cursive on the back. For emergencies, don't say I never gave you anything. That morning, Amy had woken up wheezing. Her inhaler was down to its last puff, and we were between paychecks again. I stared at that shiny plastic rectangle, hating myself for even considering it. But my daughter's breath came first. I bundled her in a hoodie 2 sizes too big and told Lyle to come with us. We didn't talk much on the drive. The cold had crept into the old car again. Heat only worked when it wanted to. And all I could think about was how badly I needed this to just work. At the pharmacy, I handed the card over with a hopeful smile I'd practiced in the rearview mirror. The cashier, a young guy with pink hair and bitten nails, slid it once, then again, then slower the 3rd time. "I'm sorry, it's not going through." "Try it again," I said, already knowing. He did. Nothing. Amy tugged my coat. "Are we still getting lunch after?" My throat tightened. "We'll see, baby." I paid in quarters, dimes, and 2 wrinkled singles. I left with a brown paper bag and a heat in my face that had nothing to do with the wind outside. We got back in the car, and I didn't speak the entire way home. Lyle didn't ask. He just looked out the window, jaw clenched like his father's used to when he was hiding disappointment. Amy clutched her inhaler like a secret. After I tucked her into a nest of blankets on the couch, I made myself a cup of weak tea. That's when I remembered. Darlene had given me that card at her birthday brunch 3 months ago. Somewhere between the avocado toast and the endless mimosas, she had smiled that tight-lipped smile and slid it across the table like it was a check I'd never cash. "Use it when your freelancing dreams crash again," she'd said. "Or just, when you're out of gas." Her friends laughed. I laughed too. That's what I did back then. Smile, play along, pretend none of it got to me. Now I was standing in my kitchen, holding a worthless card like it was evidence in a trial no one would ever see. I snapped it in half. It made a satisfying crack, but the sting stayed. Later that night, with the kids asleep, I opened my laptop and typed. They say it's the thought that counts. But what if the thought was cruel? The next morning I was folding laundry on the couch, half watching a cartoon Amy liked and half ignoring the buzzing in my phone. It was Saturday, quiet, unremarkable. Lyle was in his room, probably sketching again, and Amy had wrapped herself in the same blanket she slept under. I unlocked my phone, just to scroll while I waited for the dryer to finish. The screen lit up with a photo. Darlene, in white lace, standing under a floral arch I recognized from our mother's backyard. I blinked. Then came another photo. Champagne flutes, gold-accented cupcakes, a sparkly banner. #second chances, #ridge vows again. I scrolled faster. There were at least 30 shots. Her smiling, him smirking, people laughing in the background. Friends, neighbors, old cousins I hadn't seen since Dad's funeral. Our mother, Lorraine, stood beside her in one photo, wiping away a tear with a tissue folded perfectly in half. Then I saw the video. It was Lorraine giving a toast. "To my beautiful daughter," she said, glass raised. "You've always made me proud. This is the life you were meant for." There was no mention of me, no tag, not a word, and the caption below one group shot read, "Everyone important was here." I froze. My chest felt hollow, like the air had turned solid inside it. Lyle walked into the room with a bowl of cereal. He glanced at the phone and saw what I was watching. He didn't ask a thing. He just turned around and walked back out. No sound, no expression, and somehow that hit harder than anything else. I almost typed out a message to Darlene, then deleted it. What was I going to say? Congrats on pretending I don't exist. I thought about last year, Thanksgiving, when she'd said, "We're keeping it small this year, just the core." I had shown up anyway with sweet potato pie and 2 well-dressed kids, and we'd eaten on folding chairs in the garage. That night, once the house was quiet again, I opened a new post draft. I used to think I was being forgotten, but forgetting is accidental. This was on purpose, a clean cut, sharp, practiced. I stared at the blinking cursor, then typed, "Family doesn't forget you, they erase you." The following week, while checking my inbox during a short break at work, I saw her name again. "You're invited," the subject line read, followed by a smiling photo of Darlene mid-speech, standing behind a podium draped in baby pink silk. Join us in celebrating Central Ohio's single mothers at the Ridge Foundation launch. Together, we uplift. Amy was brushing her teeth when I showed her the screen. "Are we going, Mom?" she asked, foam in the corners of her mouth. I hesitated, then nodded. "We'll go, just to see what it's about." The community center was buzzing when we got there. Rows of pastel balloons framed the entrance, and women in matching t-shirts directed foot traffic inside. No one greeted us. No one handed us a program. We slipped in like strangers at a wedding where we weren't invited. Again. Darlene stood on a stage draped in blush velvet, wearing a pristine white pantsuit and holding a mic like she was born with it. I stood in the back with Amy beside me, surrounded by polished people nodding along as my sister said things like, "Every mother deserves a seat at the table, even if they've never had one before." I moved toward one of the booths, scholarships for enrichment programs. Amy had wanted to try theater camp next summer. A woman with a clipboard smiled tightly when I asked about applying. "I'm sorry," she said softly, eyes sliding away. "This is for pre-approved families, invitation only, part of our internal outreach list." I opened my mouth, then shut it. Amy looked up at me with wide eyes. I didn't want her to see me unravel. On stage, Darlene hugged a young mom holding a toddler. Flashbulbs popped. Applause filled the room. And in all her polished, practiced language, not once did she mention my blog. The one that had covered stories like this for years. The one I had started after leaving my ex, when writing was the only thing I could do after midnight while the kids slept. As we turned to leave, Amy asked, "Are we not struggling enough?" I didn't answer. I just held her hand tighter. That night, I sat at my laptop again, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The words came easily this time. It's easy to love the idea of the poor when they're not sitting at your dinner table. It's even easier when they don't share your last name. Later that week, while sorting mail and half listening to a documentary playing in the background, my phone buzzed. Lorraine's name flashed across the screen. I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready for another round of pleasantries masked as judgment. But then, she didn't hang up. At first, it was static. Then her voice, muffled like she was on speakerphone. "I've done what I could for her, Dar, but let's be real. She's always been the problem. We can't carry her forever." I froze, phone still in my hand, pressed to my chest like a wound. Darlene responded with something I couldn't quite catch, but Lorraine's voice stayed sharp and clear. "She makes everything harder than it needs to be. Always has. I'm tired of pretending." Each word landed like a slap. I hadn't expected much from her, but even so, this cut deeper. She wasn't whispering. She wasn't careful. She was certain. Then came the part I won't ever forget. "I'll make sure she doesn't cause trouble during the holidays," she said, calm as ever. "But she's not part of our plan." Our plan. As if I was some stray piece that didn't belong on the puzzle. The sound of Lyle's footsteps pulled me back. He came into the room, took one look at my face, and said nothing. He didn't need to. He just walked over and wrapped his arms around me. I sank to the floor with him beside me, both of us silent. He was 12. He shouldn't have had to hold up his mother. My mind flashed to 5th grade, the night of the parent-teacher conference. Lorraine had promised to come. I wore the red sweater she said made me look neat, but she never showed. Later, I found out she was at Darlene's ballet recital, front row, beaming in every photo. Even now, she never picked me. Later that night, after Lyle and Amy had gone to sleep, I stared at my laptop screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began to move. A mother isn't just the woman who gave birth to you. She's the one who shows up. She's the one who sees you. I paused. And sometimes, she's just the one who chose someone else. Thanksgiving crept in with a gray sky and brittle wind. The streets were quiet, lined with cars parked for family dinners and crowded driveways. Mine wasn't one of them. I ironed Amy's dress while Lyle adjusted his shirt collar in the mirror. We packed up the pie she helped bake and drove in silence to Bentley Creek. As expected, no one answered the door. I knocked once, then let us in. The warmth hit like a wall, fireplace on, jazz humming low, and clinking glasses in the background. I guided the kids through the entryway, their footsteps swallowed by thick carpet. Darlene appeared in stilettos and a wine-colored silk dress. She didn't look surprised to see us. "Oh, you brought something," she said, eyeing the pie. "That's cute." Lorraine sat perched on the edge of the white couch, swirling her wine. She didn't bother to stand or even look directly at me. Just muttered, "Traffic must have been something." I set the pie on the counter, straightened up, and forced a smile. A few minutes later, Darlene clapped her hands. "So," she announced cheerfully, "we're a little tight on space this year, but don't worry, we've set you guys up out back." I blinked. "Out back?" She gestured toward the side door with a smirk. "It's private, and, well, she's used to scraps." The room hushed. Forks stopped mid-air. No one laughed. No one said a word. Lyle's jaw tensed. Amy looked up at me, confused. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I picked up the pie and nodded once. "Let's go." The back patio wasn't even set. A folding table had been dragged next to the trash bins. 2 chairs, one crate, paper napkins held down by a salt shaker. Amy tried to smooth her dress as she sat. Lyle just stood there, arms crossed, refusing the food. I plated things like it was a picnic and cracked a joke about alfresco dining. Neither of them laughed. I stood up and walked back inside to grab napkins. Darlene was reaching for a bottle of wine. "Next time," I said quietly, "don't pretend. Just say we're not welcome." She looked at me, raised one brow, and shrugged. What would be the fun in that? The day after Thanksgiving, I woke up with the kind of exhaustion that sits behind your eyes. I packed up the empty casserole dish I'd brought to Darlene's, untouched, of course, and told the kids I'd be back before dinner. They didn't ask where I was going. Lorraine's condo sat in a cul-de-sac that looked like it had never seen conflict. White shutters, trimmed hedges, quiet driveways. I knocked twice. She answered with that thin-lipped smile she wore like a shield. "Well, look who's here. Everything all right?" she asked, like the night before hadn't happened. "I'm just returning the dish," I said. She motioned for me to come in. "You want some wine? There's still a bottle open." "I'm good." We moved to the kitchen. She moved slowly, like the weight of appearances was getting heavier with age. I placed the dish in her sink and turned to leave, but something caught my eye. A folder spread halfway open on the dining table. Legal blue, gold stamped, estate planning final draft. I froze. Lorraine's phone buzzed in the other room. She stepped out muttering something about the cable bill. Alone, I leaned closer. The folder was filled with typed pages. Structured, clean, names bolded. Except mine. I flipped to the list of beneficiaries. Darlene, her husband, even a trust set up for their unborn second child. Nothing for me, not even a mention. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. She walked back in, brushing hair behind her ear like she hadn't just edited me out of her life. I held up the folder. "Why am I not in this?" She sighed, didn't meet my eyes. "Darlene has children, and she's running a business. You—" "Right, sometimes." The words didn't sting. Not anymore. They settled into the part of me already bruised. "You've made it clear where I stand," I said calmly. "Just don't expect me to keep pretending." I slid the folder back to where I found it. "I won't be at Christmas," I added, reaching for the door. She didn't argue. She just picked up her wine glass. At the doorway, I paused. "If anything else gets done behind my back," I said, "I promise it won't stay there." I didn't even get a chance to take my coat off before the knock came. Not a knock. 3 sharp raps, purposeful. I opened the door to find a woman in a navy windbreaker, clipboard in hand. Behind her, a white sedan with a state logo idled at the curb. "Miss Fulton? I'm with Child Protective Services." My stomach dropped. She stepped inside before I could say yes. "We received a report of possible neglect, expired food, unsafe sleeping arrangements, verbal instability." I blinked. "What?" Lyle appeared from the hallway. Amy stood by the kitchen counter, clutching her cereal spoon midair. The woman scanned the living room like she already knew what she'd find. "Do you mind if I take a quick look around?" I nodded stiffly. What else could I do? The apartment wasn't spotless, but it was clean. Their beds were made. The fridge was stocked. Amy had colored sticky notes on the wall for her asthma reminders. Lyle's books were lined up next to the heater. She asked questions, took notes. I answered every single one, but deep down I knew this wasn't random. After she left, I sat on the couch in silence while the kids watched cartoons like nothing happened. My hands didn't stop shaking until they went to bed. That night, I logged onto my blog, hoping to lose myself in something else. Instead, I found comments. Dozens of them. Ugly ones. "Stop using your kids for pity." Another single mom sob story. "She's mad her rich sister won't bail her out." They were all anonymous, with usernames like TruthTeller102 and Concerned Auntie. All new, all fake. One quoted Darlene's words, "She's used to scraps." Word for word. I wasn't shocked. Not anymore. I was tired of being polite about poison. So I hit record. The video was under 3 minutes. "If this is supposed to scare me quiet, you picked the wrong woman. If you want war, fine, but don't pretend you're doing it out of love." By morning, the post had gone viral. Real people, women who'd been cut out, dismissed, bruised by family in pearls and power suits, began commenting, sharing, lifting me. That night, I tucked the kids in, closed the blinds, and double-checked the locks. I didn't know what they'd try next. But I knew one thing. I was ready. The week passed quietly, but not peacefully. My phone buzzed every hour. Notifications, shares, strangers' support. But also silence from the people who should have said something. That was louder. Then, on a gray Thursday morning, Lyle shouted from the window, "Mom, there's a fancy car outside." I looked. A black Bentley, gleaming, slow, out of place on our cracked street. The door opened. A woman stepped out. Gray suit, heels that didn't flinch on the icy curb. She carried herself like someone who never begged to be heard. "Anissa Fulton?" she asked. I nodded, guarded. "I'm Velma Whitmore. I run Reclaim Dignity. We saw your video and your blog. We'd like you to open our advocacy summit next week." I blinked. "Why me?" she smiled. "Because your story isn't rare. You just had the guts to tell it." A week later, I stood backstage in a downtown Columbus ballroom. Velvet curtains, spotlights, rows of folding chairs filled with faces like mine. Tired, curious, quietly strong. Velma introduced me. She reminded us that family doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes it means surviving anyway. "Please welcome Anissa Fulton." My hands didn't shake. I spoke from the place behind my ribs, the part that had broken too many times not to harden. I told them about the gift card that didn't work, about the wedding that didn't include me, about folding chairs behind a garbage bin while people with my blood toasted champagne inside. "She said I was used to scraps," I said. "But here's what they never understood. Scraps don't make you small. They make you resourceful. They sharpen you." Silence. Then applause. Then a wave. Women lined up after. Some hugged me. Some whispered, "That was me. I thought it was just me." Back home that evening, I lit a candle and poured tea. Darlene's number flashed across my screen. I let it ring. A minute later, Lorraine's message popped up. "Saw the video. Hope you're well." I replied, "We're better than ever. Thanks." I put the phone down, looked around my apartment. The same space. But it felt different. I'd been pushed to the margins, and somehow, I'd built a platform there. 2 weeks after the summit, the silence didn't sting. It simply confirmed everything I already knew. One gray afternoon, I was folding laundry when a memory hit like a slow wave. It was years ago, back when Darlene had just started dating Raymond. He was charming, the kind of man who always looked for reflections of himself in every mirror, and every woman's eyes. One evening, after a family dinner, he'd cornered me in the kitchen, said I looked way better than Darlene ever mentioned. I told him to back off. He smiled like I was the joke. That same night, Darlene caught me walking out of the hallway, alone. But it didn't matter. Her mind had already built the scene she needed. She never saw me the same after that. But the real wound was older. I was 21, scared, and sitting in a clinic lobby. My mother beside me, purse clenched, voice tight. "If you keep this baby," Lorraine had said, "you'll ruin your life, and mine." And just like that, my voice disappeared. I didn't speak of it for years. I had buried it under diapers, side gigs, and long shifts. Until now. That night, Amy curled up next to me on the couch. She fiddled with the hem of her pajamas, her eyes wide. "Will we ever see them again?" she asked softly. I ran my fingers through her curls. "No, baby, we don't need to." She didn't argue, just held tighter. Later, my phone buzzed again. Lorraine. One line. "Saw the article? Congratulations, I guess." I stared at it, then typed back, "I hope someday you understand what real family means." I blocked the number. Weeks passed. I mailed a check, quietly, to 2 local shelters. One was the same center I'd been turned away from. This time, no name attached. Just a note. From someone who remembers what it's like to be overlooked. Rumors started swirling. Darlene's firm lost a client after social media backlash. Raymond was spotted at a fundraiser. Alone. No ring. That wasn't my doing. Not directly. And that's the difference between revenge and truth. They didn't break me. They revealed me. And now, I write my own script. One where scraps aren't even on the menu. Before I close this chapter completely, let me leave you with this. I used to think survival was about staying quiet, staying small, staying grateful for crumbs. But what I've learned is this. Silence doesn't keep the peace. It just keeps the pain polite. Family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who see your worth, who choose you even when it's inconvenient. And sometimes that person has to be you. So if you're watching this and feeling like the outcast in your own family, please know, being cut out doesn't mean you're worthless. Sometimes it just means you were never part of a table that deserved you. I've walked through shame, betrayal, and isolation, but I've also rebuilt, brick by brick, voice by voice. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been made to feel like the problem, just for existing? Have you ever been erased, but found your own pen and wrote yourself back in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Let's talk about it. And hey, if this video touched something deep in you, even just a little, comment A or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't resonate, tell me why. I welcome all perspectives here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story.